Immigration 101, Busting the Myths. There are a lot of misconceptions, myths, and half-truths floating out there about immigrants and the U.S. immigration system. Now, some of this is due to people repeating the same misconceptions, and some of it is due to anti-immigrant restrictionists perpetuating the myths on purpose. So to help cut through the confusion, in this video we will tackle 5 of the most common myths around immigration and provide the facts around each issue. Undocumented immigrants should just get in line. Myth number 1. On its face, this makes sense. We want a system that is fair, just, and treats everyone equally. But the idea that there's a line which immigrants wade in to get into the U.S. is a complete myth. There are basically only 3 paths to become a legal immigrant in the U.S. through work sponsorship, family sponsorship, or asylum. But each of these categories is incredibly hard to qualify for because of outdated policies, long backlogs that drag out the process for years or decades, difficult to navigate legal barriers, and caps on limiting the number of immigrants. For example, Filipino or Mexican applicants petitioning to join their relatives in the U.S. often wait decades, literally 20 years or more, for a visa. Many people can't wait that long. For instance, there are deported parents living outside the U.S. who cross our borders to reunite with their U.S. citizen children. Or, for example, you're a foreign national without advanced degrees who has no family in the U.S. and does not qualify for asylum. You probably have no legal path to immigrate to the U.S. ever, no matter how many decades you wait. Why can't they just get legal? Myth number 2. There are roughly 11.5 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. 2/3 have lived in the U.S. for over a decade. About 82% of adult undocumented immigrants have at least one child who's a U.S. citizen, and 16.6 million people in the U.S. live with at least one undocumented immigrant in the household. The undocumented population generally is susceptible to deportation at any time. Deportations lead to detention, family separation, trauma for children and families, loss of income, and financial difficulties. If undocumented immigrants could protect themselves by getting legal, they would. But under our current system, undocumented immigrants generally cannot just legalize their status. Many just don't have the option at all. They'd have to go back to their home countries, and as we mentioned in Myth 1, wait decades to be sponsored into the U.S. Some might not have any plausible path ever for coming back legally. Even immigrants who marry U.S. citizens often aren't eligible to change their status. There is something called the 3 and 10-year ban, which means that immigrants who marry and want to change their legal status have to leave the U.S. and wait in their home country for 10 years before being able to come back. Even learning about the options you have as an immigrant takes money. Immigrant families can spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees just trying to adjust their status, only to find out that they are not able to legalize or that the lawyer that they trusted was actually a fraud. Immigrants don't pay taxes. Myth number 3. This myth is just plain false. Immigrants pay about $400 billion in taxes each year, including some $27 billion paid in taxes by undocumented immigrants. Their taxes support local schools, Social Security, and Medicaid, among other programs. However, many immigrants are unable to benefit from programs such as food stamps, housing assistance, Social Security, and Medicaid, which are only accessible to permanent residents and U.S. citizens. Simply put, immigrants contribute more tax dollars than they receive in government benefits. Immigrants take our jobs. Myth number 4. We live in a time with lots of social and global changes and technological upheaval. These factors affect U.S. workers in ways that are often wrongly blamed on immigrants. The U.S. Labor Department under George W. Bush said that the idea that immigrants take jobs from native-born workers was, quote, the most persistent fallacy about immigration in popular thought. Immigrants don't take jobs any more than women took jobs when they entered the economy, or more than each class of high school and college graduates take jobs. When people enter the economy, some of them create businesses, which create jobs, and everyone who has spending power creates jobs. In fact, immigrants are good for the economy. As the economist at the University of California, Davis puts it, quote, most economists agree that in spite of being a very big part of the labor force, immigrants have not come at the cost of either American jobs nor American wages. Experts have said one of the best ways to improve the economy would be to turbocharge immigration. Businesses owned by immigrants also employ almost 8 million Americans. They help revitalize parts of the country that are facing population stagnation. And the $1.1 trillion in immigrant spending power, in turn, supports our businesses and creates jobs for native-born workers. Immigrants are criminals. Myth number 5. Unfortunately, it's a pretty common political tactic to use fear-mongering against immigrants in order to paint them as terrorists or criminals. In fact, the overwhelming amount of studies looking into the issue found no relationship between immigrants and crime, and many of the studies found that immigrants bring a benefit to the neighborhoods they join through economic and cultural revitalization. Additional research looking specifically at undocumented immigrants found the same, and that there is no evidence to support the correlation between immigrants and crime, no matter the status of the immigrant. The demonization of immigrants is what makes communities less safe. When policies target immigrants and make them feel unsafe, immigrants don't talk to the police when they are victims or witnesses to crime. That makes us all worse off. Immigrants work hard to raise their families in safe communities. They commit fewer crimes than those born in the U.S. and are a benefit to their communities. These myths won't likely disappear anytime soon, but the facts can help combat the myths. Remember, there is currently not a fair, timely, or effective line where undocumented immigrants can wait to get into the U.S. There is no good way for most immigrants to change their legal status. That's why we need immigration reform. Immigrants do pay taxes, and they contribute to programs like Social Security and Medicaid that they're not allowed to benefit from. Immigrants are a net positive for the economy. Far from costing native-born workers jobs, immigrants create jobs through new businesses and through their own spending power. Immigrants commit fewer crimes than native-born workers, and they want to work hard and raise their families in safety just like everyone else. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment to see the next video in the series, and so that others can find this video as well.